Oh, I got canceled last week, and I didn't even put a whole video out. I just put a clip out, and I got some people pretty upset with me on Facebook. I had to take my video down, and it was about this whole DOGE thing. People are worked up right now. Understandably, it's, frightening if you thought your career was going to be potentially eliminated and you had sort of put all your eggs in that basket, understandably, and here we are. So I do want to address this issue because you and I have discussed this all the way back in earlier 2024, where we heard people in politics saying they were going to come in and do this sort of refining of the U.S. government, and I think most people didn't take it seriously, but it seems like here we are, February 2020, 2025, and it seems like this is a real thing. So last night I got a call from a client who was house shopping and she was worried about DOGE and she decided she's going to put everything on hold for, 3 to 6 months, whatever it is, until she feels comfortable. So even if people aren't directly affected, they're just worried about being affected. So let's discuss what we think you should do in light of DOGE if you work for the government or you're a contractor and you have some concerns about your job future and
I
you
think,
own a
Brian,
home.
yeah, I think you nailed it. I think there's a lot of unknowns right now. Let's face it. We've identified that the government is taking some pretty drastic steps in making some cuts. And there's a lot of unknown of where those cuts might occur, who's going to be impacted, et cetera. So with that in mind, rightfully so, I would pull back and I would rethink my strategy of what do I need to do to look at the next 6 months. Where am I today and where am I going forward? So we talked about this earlier. Like, we look at it and say, okay, if I was in this position, what would I do? And I think there's a number of things that I would do. I mean, number one, if I'm thinking about buying a home, I may put it on pause. I may continue to improve my credit situation like everyone else, and that's rightfully a good thing from that perspective, right? If
Right.
I owned a house, I would definitely look at it from really four perspectives. Number one, I would look to see, hey, am I in a position of do I need the home that I'm in? Is this a situation where it makes sense to retain the home that I have, or perhaps it's a time to rebalance my financial life and my housing. It's number one. Number two, I'd look to see what kind of debt I have outstanding, right? Because if we've got a lot of debt, we may want to do some debt consolidation. We may want to do a refinance of the mortgage. We might want to get a home equity line of credit, which we've talked about before as well. Getting that line of credit, consolidating the debt, or just having that available. And then the last thing I would want to look at is where am I on my 401k, my TSP, my IRAs to see what kind of reserves that I have. Because in all cases, this is a wake up call for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We're looking around saying, it's not always going to be business as usual. And there may be some bumps in the road like there are in anything we do.
Yeah, the housing market's off 70%. So you and I personally have felt the squeeze of business. So I mean, I can appreciate all of that. All right, so let's break some of this down. So you're saying if if you thought there was a more than 40 or 50% chance that you could be affected by a Doge situation, maybe you don't know for sure yet, but you're thinking about that it's a
Mhm.
thing. Do you feel like and okay, so let's say for instance, selling your house is an option. Does it need to be something where you would decide ahead of time to sell your house?
Well, I think you got to look at it from three perspectives. Number one, if you got a great rate, man, it's hard to tell you. You're at 2.5%. Honestly, selling that house may not make any sense because to rent's going to cost you the same bloody thing, right?
All right,
So,
so
yeah,
so one option would be to rent your house instead of selling your house. So if you lost your job, you don't have to sell your house per se.
correct.
You might if your income is gone and your savings is not there and you don't have another job lined up and you are going to leave Washington D.C. obviously. But if all of those things are not true, um I had a client last 2 days ago. It's a mutual friend of ours. I went out to Nanjamoy on a listing appointment, and when I got out there, uh, I didn't read my text message all the way. He said, "Hey man, I think it's time to go ahead and list our house." And I didn't read the bottom part of it because you get the text message
Sure.
notifications. So he said for rent. So I drove all the way out there like 7 o'clock at night to Nanjamoy. He's like, "Yeah, man, I don't know why you felt like you need to come all the way out here. Just we're gonna rent in like 4 months." I was like, "My bad, bro. I didn't read my text message, but I appreciate you being willing to let me come out to talk to you
About renting the
about renting
house.
your house."
Yeah.
And his deal was, "Look, man, there's no reason to sell my house ever. Like, I don't need to.
Correct.
It's close to being paid off, and the amount of money I can collect in rent is way more than what my mortgage is. So even if we're gonna look at buying a house somewhere else, and we're gonna use the money that we have to do that, we're not gonna cash out, and I'm gonna use this as my retirement." So I think that there's like this default um, decision people make. If you want to buy a house, you have to sell your house. Not that everybody wants to be a landlord, but this guy already is a landlord.
Hmm.
He has a garage that he rents out as an apartment,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
yeah, so he's like, "We'll just get two people going at the same time, and here we go." So I would say, um, consider your options. All right. So what was next on your list?
So the next thing I would look at is it possibly a matter of doing some debt consolidation? Maybe we're going to consolidate some of the debt that we have, and we look around and say, I've got these car loans, I got these credit cards, I got this personal loan. Maybe getting either a second mortgage, like a home equity line, a second mortgage itself, or even refinancing the first for that matter, right?
All right. It's a good point. If you were going to get a home equity line of credit, is it easier or harder once you've lost your job?
Well, let's face it, it's going to be very difficult. And in most cases, I'm going to highly recommend that, if you have the equity, regardless of whether or not you have this concern, it's always a good move to get a home equity line of credit. I mean, to be quite honest with you, it's like a credit card attached to your home that if you never use it, you don't pay any interest. That's the win-win of a home equity, right? But it's typically available for 15 years.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where, you know what, it's great when you have it available. If you need it, if you don't, c'est la vie, right?
Amen. I think that's a fantastic piece of advice. So, God forbid, you went through a 3 to 6 month period. And it sounds like the people that took the initial offer, they were getting paid for 8 months, but we don't know what, if you didn't take the offer, I don't know what government severance looks like. I don't know if you get 2 weeks notice, if you get, uh, when I left my corporate job, they paid me 2 weeks for every year I was there, and I was there for 11 years. So, I got like 3.5 months of severance or whatever as one lump sum, and then they taxed the heck out of it. So I didn't think about that until I got the check. But so
Where's
I,
the other half? Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So based on that, if if you did have, assuming it's not like, you show up to work on a Monday and you don't have a paycheck Tuesday, if you have some time in between and maybe you're going to find another job in the area, it would be good to have a home equity line of credit that you could tap just a little bit in order to sort of keep yourself solvent, as they say,
Right.
and keep your bills paid up, keep your mortgage paid. So that makes sense. What was the next item you were talking about?
Next
So,
thing I would take a look at my current liquid assets. And what I mean by that is, a lot of us don't realize it, but what do we have in our 401k? What do we have in our TSP? What do we have in our IRAs? What kind of cash value to life insurance? I got a client the other day and we were just joking and he's got $10,000 in savings bonds. I mean, those are the kind of things people don't realize that you might have backup cash that you don't understand that you have available to you, that it's nice to know that I have something to fall back on from that perspective. And that's been another angle that one of my clients is taking on. And from that perspective, making sure they have identification of what kind of liquidity they have available. Another one of my clients, I think it's kind of crazy, but has decided actually to go back to school. Even though they're not in a position right now where, they're not concerned about their, losing their job, their point is, what? I realize I don't have as many skills as I could have had. And he's going back to get his Microsoft certifications.
Okay.
And so he's looking at it from the perspective of, okay, if something happens, I'm going to be okay because, I already have a plan in action. I'm going to go ahead and seek an alternative position just so I have something for fallback position.
All right, I like that. So we're going to take out a home equity line of credit. We're going to start getting our skill set up, update our resume. We're going to be prepared. The other thing that I would say that goes along those lines is, God forbid, right? You find out you lost your job and you do need or want to sell your house. The amount of chaos involved with just losing your job is enough. Having to move is enough to drive
Hmm.
most people crazy. Um, the thing with selling your house is that most people have an idea of what they think the process is like. Maybe you've done it before. Maybe your house is like immaculate and it doesn't need anything. I would say 8 out of 10 people that I work with do end up investing some time, sometimes some money,
Right.
quite a bit of effort to get their house sold, even if it's just packing. But a lot of times it is that the carpets need to be refreshed, that the
Hmm.
countertops are a little dated, that the paint on the walls needs a refreshing, and that the door handles or cabinet fixtures or lights or things like that need to be updated. I would suggest having a realtor who has a plan like the one I do, where you bring in like an interior decorator, or you sort of at least heavily advise. It's a free consultation and talk about what it would take to get your house ready to be sold for the top dollar. Because yeah, you could theoretically sell any house as is today for cash.
Right.
The difference between that and investing, some time and effort into getting it looking tip top is an enormous amount of money. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And when you are, in a situation where you're financially strapped,
Hmm.
extra tens of thousands of dollars is good. So if you really want to be one of those, like, do it the right way people, I would say you'd probably want to have your realtor out now to discuss what would it take to get this whole home sold for top dollar. What do you think it's worth? Let's go over the numbers real quick. What am I going to walk away with? What's my cash? And at least you have that education so that you can make good decisions. And maybe you find out it's more than you thought, or maybe it's less than you thought. But assuming, those numbers are right, you'll have ways to make educated decisions. I always tell people you can't make educated decisions on any of this stuff until you have all the information. Like, you can't decide you're going to move to Texas and buy a new construction house unless you know how much you're making from the house you're currently living in as a down
Hmm.
payment, what your
Hmm.
mortgage payment is
Hmm.
going to be at the next house, and
Right.
how much of a down payment you're actually going to need. And, people oftentimes put that in reverse order. They want to go look at houses. And then once they found one, it's like, okay, I want to sell my house. It's like, well, unfortunately, people are not excited about you buying their house when your house isn't on the market. It's a lesson a lot of people have to learn the hard way. But I would say, yeah, is there anything else that you might do if you were facing this uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it right there, Brian. I think I would definitely bring in, a real estate professional to talk about, the condition of the house, the marketplace itself. I get calls all the time from clients, past clients who just want to know, how does my credit look? Is there anything I can
Right.
do to enhance it? Are
Yeah.
there any kind of debt consolidation loans out there? What can I do to improve my overall financial situation? So I think that truly is a home run. And you're right. It's not only a matter of, hey, I should sell my home immediately. I got a client right now, and I'm talking to him today, and he's like, "Hey, I just bought my house last fall. I work on the base over in Dahlgren," and he's saying, there's some rumblings here too that I may or may not have a position, and he's only been there a year or so, so he's still in his probationary period, right? And we're talking, and he said, I really don't know what I'm going to do, and I said, dude, you live in a 4 bedroom, 2.5 bedroom house. It's him and his girlfriend, right? So I said, what would you think about renting 2 or 3 bedrooms out? And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, if you rented out 2 or 3 bedrooms, you do realize your mortgage payment would be paid in full by the renters. And all of a sudden, click, he's thinking ahead and he's like, wow, I'm really not in that bad of a position. And maybe I do rent a couple of bedrooms out temporarily. And maybe I look at it from the perspective of, okay, you know what? This is my opportunity to redesign or rediscover where I want to go or what I want to be or what I want to do. Or maybe this is more just a temporary bump in the road. So the key that you mentioned in the very beginning is we don't panic. We assess our situation. We identify what steps can we take now to shore up the foundation. What steps do we have available that can assist during any kind of a difficult time? And then looking ahead, we've got to realize this is not the end of the game. This is just another step in the journey that we're on, right?
That was beautiful, Tim. That was beautiful. All right, it's
Sometimes the
another
coffee
step
kicks
in the
in.
just it's another step in the journey we're on. But I think the overarching advice is to not wait until it's too late to bring in experts. I mean, all the things we've
Right.
discussed are free. Even getting a home equity line of credit doesn't cost you anything, I don't think. Um, talking to Tim is free. Talking to me is
Hmm.
free. Talking to your accountant may or may not be free, depending on what kind of accountant you're working with. So yeah, I would say that getting outside counsel is always good advice, and some people are more and less open to that idea. But me personally, and I think you personally, I think that's always the best way to go. If I'm ever going to
Hmm.
do anything, what I want to do, talk to the guy who does it the best and find out how they do it, and let's just do it that way. Bring in good people. It's always good to have good people. So you're good people, Tim. I would call you if I was in a financial situation for sure.
I would do the same. Just ask you about your values there, sir.
All right, Tim. What else? Anything else you want to go over, man?
Well, I've always told people, I said, you know what? The biggest thing, biggest mistake you can make is to jump into a situation and not think it thoroughly through. And I always tell people, you know what? Look at it from an idea that one door closes, another door opens. And so with that perspective, I'm like, okay, what is it that I need to do? I mean, you and I have been through this, and I'll give you some perspective. I mean, there were 600,000 mortgage loan officers 3 years ago, and today there's less than 100,000. So if you think about that number, you're like,
Hold on. Say that again.
there were 600,000 licensed loan officers 3 years ago.
Wow.
Today there are less than 100,000. So I want you to look do that number. So 100 divided by 600, right? You're talking about there's 17% of us left.
I
And
wish I could say that about real estate agents. It feels like they're all still in business.
there's a lot there, but but a lot of them have
They
left.
just yeah, but they just have the ability to keep their license
Correct.
and not produce anything. Like as of September last year, 70% of them had done one or zero deals. And
There you go.
for what, a couple $100, you can keep that license and continue to pretend that you're the best person that can help somebody in a situation. Meanwhile, you have a full-time job somewhere else. We'll talk about that on another podcast. But that's an incredible number. So do you feel like that that's going to go down even farther?
Yeah, a little bit more. And you know what? Look, all I can do is what's it do? It gives me a little more time to work out, take care of myself. I am drinking more coffee. That is a dangerous
That's
sign. I won't
good for
lie to
you,
you.
Tim. That's
That's
good
what
for you. You're
you
not
told me
drinking
that the
liquor,
other
Tim.
day.
You're drinking coffee. It's healthy for you. It keeps you from getting
Kidney
different kinds of
stones.
cancer, kidney
Yeah,
stones, and
there you go.
also the Alzheimer's. It prevents Alzheimer's. So
Well,
drink more coffee, Tim, and then one day you'll get a big cup like this
see, I'm
and
not.
start drinking
I
it.
haven't earned one yet. I was hoping to get one that said the Mayor Group on it, but I don't have one.
I'll
I'm
see
just
if I can
saying.
get you one of these,
Oh
Tim.
my goodness, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, mine says Dixie. There you go. All right,
All right,
brother.
Tim. I
Have a good
appreciate you,
one.
man.
Cheers. Talk to you soon.